E360 TV proudly presents Messages of Inspirational Stories TV show. Live streaming now to millions of devices around the world on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook live streaming. Our shows are available video on demand on these channels. And we broadcast daily, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on these channels. On Mondays, Expanding Your Business. Tuesdays, Finding Health Naturally. Wednesdays, Mentoring Our Youth. Thursdays, Pets We Love. And on Fridays, Women in Leadership. Brought to you by our producers and hosts, Jim Grant and Donna Guinois. Along with our host, Beata Severin Reed and Emerson Brantley. Supported by our admin team of Michaela Vidal and Gaia Guinois Balconi Leda. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Messages of Inspirational Stories, proudly brought to you by the good guys at the 6minutewebinar.com and by our good friend, Mr. Bill Heinrich. The 7 levels of truth. My camera kind of goofs that up sometimes, the lighting when I hold that close. That's his book there. Mr. Bill's picture there is on the back. And the 7 levels of truth is all about giving you clarity and peace in your mind and finding the things that you have a birthright to, such as love, happiness, joy, and peace in your life. And that book there will really help you get from where you are to where you want to be. The 6-minute webinar, of course, that is a wonderful tool. It's a great application to help you get your crystal clear message across on the one thing that your client is interested in. Because most people, they want to use the buffet approach. They want to show them everything. When you go into a buffet, you know you're not going to eat everything. You're going to pick and choose what you want. So with your ideal client, you want to attract them on the one thing that you want to talk about. Even though you may have 5 or 6, they didn't come there for 5 or 6 things. They came there for one thing and one thing only. And they only want to know one thing. Can you help them solve their pain? Or can you help them solve their problem? That's it. And I'm joined today by our good friend, Mr. Rennie Gabriel. He's family here. We've been doing this series now for about this, I think it's 3rd or 4th show, I believe it is. And Rennie is just when it comes to real estate, he's a guy that's just got so much knowledge. Let me just bring him on here and welcome him to the show. Rennie, it's so good to have you back again. And I want you to talk about wealth on any income and your charity. So I'm going to remove myself so the folks out there in TV land can see the full background there. So I'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Jim. And if you're still able to listen, Jim, there's something on my end that says, oh, never mind. I can't read. I thought it was saying, it wasn't recording, but it says uploading recordings. And I guess that's the best thing I could say is that to create wealth, you can be simple like me, and the stuff I talk about works for anyone. But let me talk about the charity that gets 100% of the profits from the work I do, teaching other people how to handle money effectively. It's called Shelter to Soldier. And what they do is they rescue dogs from environments where they could be euthanized, like shelters. And if they have the right personality and size, they are trained as service animals for soldiers who've come back with PTSD or traumatic brain injury or other issues. And those soldiers might have committed suicide because of the isolation that goes on and things, and, dealing with the problems that they have. So this charity is saving 2 lives at a time with every dollar. A dog that would have been euthanized and a soldier that might have otherwise committed suicide. So I'm just thrilled to be in a situation where I can live on my investment income and donate 100% of the profits from teaching other people how to handle money to not only that charity, but other animal and veteran charities. That's it, Jim. Enough about why I'm doing what I'm doing.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. And I also want to put up your, I should have done that, your website, wealthonanyincome.com. So you can go to the website there and you can read up about Rennie. And Rennie, I think you and we first met on the 6-minute webinar, if I'm not mistaken, didn't we?
I think so. If not, you referred me to it, or Bill or Don referred me to you, one way or the other. But that 6-minute webinar is so fabulous for creating the clarity for, your business. I mean, the questions that it asks, filling in the blanks. I mean, the template they created just is amazing in terms of how the clarity that it creates.
Yeah. Don McGrath, he is an engineer. He's got a PhD. He's got, I don't know how many patents. It's more than 24. And I remember one time him and we were in a car and I said, you could at least save one patent for me, or at least let me help you on a patent. I was teasing him a little bit, but Don is so brilliant. He created an application where it asked you questions, you put in the answers, and when ScriptPile converts it into your presentation, it blows everybody away. And I got to share a story with you about the 6-minute webinar, if I may. I invited a friend of mine, Rick Cesari. He's been on the TV show here several times. Rick is a marketing guru kind of a guy. He's the guy that was behind the scenes of the marketing of, you may have heard of these products on TV, GoPro camera, George Foreman grill, OxyClean. And when we were asking him, me and Don were on there, and we were asking him bullet comments, and just okay. He says, "Wow, this is really making me think," because if someone asked you, "What do you do?" The average business person will kind of like, "Well, I do this and I do," and they give all this filler information that your client doesn't need. That's why the 6-minute webinar is so good. But let's get back into why we're here today. My goodness gracious, we kicked off our first show. We started talking about, buying the home with no money down. And it really isn't with no money down. It's knowing how to access funds that are available with no money out of your own pocket. And we kicked off with that. And I'll let you do a quick little recap there so we can lead into today's show.
You got it. So on the last show, we talked about how to set a goal. We used the acronym SMART, standing for specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time deadline.
Right.
And, being the age I am, I don't quite remember all the stuff we spoke about.
It was good, though. I can tell you that, folks.
Oh, yeah. We also spoke about financing, that a 1 to 4 unit is financed the same way as a single family house. So you could have tenants helping you buy your house because they're making the mortgage payments. And then we spoke about how to find the building, how to use LoopNet or a broker and things like that. So that's
also too, one thing that he said last week that I wasn't aware of. He said, if you buy a unit that's 1 to 4 units, you're going to apply for it and your credit comes into play.
Oh, yes.
And if it's 5 units or more, I'll let you explain that because that blew me away.
It's the building that needs to qualify for the loan more than you and your credit. And so the bank is looking, does this building have cash flow enough to support the loan that we're providing? And that's, your credit isn't as much of an issue at all.
Yeah. And so you can see that show if you go to our YouTube channel, Messages of Inspirational Stories TV show. That's the way I got it listed there. It's real easy to remember and all. And just go to live and just scroll down till you come to expanding your business And that's the last, because it's, the last one, that's last week's show. And you can be able to click on that and go forward. Now, next week, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to take a look at a property and we're going to evaluate it. So if you're wanting to know that, be sure and tune in next week. But this week here, Rennie, you wanted to talk about some other things, didn't you, brother?
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I want to talk about is how to evaluate an apartment building instead of a house. Like with a house, you've got, what's the neighborhood it's in and what are the neighbors like and how well has it been landscaped and what color paint is it, and what kind of floor plan does it have? And all of these, what I'll call emotional issues around buying the house. Apartment buildings, I believe I touched on this before, are evaluated differently. They're evaluated based on rents. And it's just a real simple formula. And I'll give you some examples. I like doing this in my UCLA class. And by the way, I do have the ability for people to buy what I teach at UCLA. It's recorded. It comes with all the forms and the documents. But if any of your listeners are sitting at home and they can get a piece of paper and a pencil or a piece of paper and a pen, that would be helpful, because I'll be spitting out some numbers and things like that, which, might be handy to write down. So as an example, and I'm going to use simple numbers because I failed high school math. So we're going to use simple numbers like 100,000 or 1 million, things that all I have to do is move a decimal point. So now let's say that you buy an apartment building for $100,000.
Okay.
And let's say there are 10 units. And let's say your rent for that building, 10 units, each person is paying $1,000 a month. That's $10,000 a month of income, $120,000 a year of income. And let's say you increase the rent to everyone by $100. So now everyone's paying $1,100 a month. You've added $1,000 a year? No, $1,200 a year. Look at that. I actually did that in my head. $1,200 a year increased. No, that's not right.
Let's see. Okay, $100 a month increase would be $1,200 a year per
unit times 10, 12,000. Thank you, Jim. I knew it didn't sound good enough.
I was using my calculator, folks.
You don't need to be good at math to do this. Okay, so back to the pencil and paper. So you've increased the rents by $12,000. Now, let's say in the neighborhood where this building is located, the buildings sell for 10 times the rent. Okay, so if the rent was $100,000 a year, you couldn't have bought it for $100,000. You'd have to pay $1 million for it. So that was my first mistake. So $100,000 a year in rents, a multiplier, gross rent multiplier of 10 means the building should sell for $1 million. Now, if I've increased the rent by $100 per tenant, I've increased it by $12,000 per year. And if I multiply that by 10, what do I get, Jim?
120,000.
120,000. That building, because I raised the rent $100 per tenant, has now increased in value by $120,000. It was that simple to increase this building's value from 1 million to $1,120,000 just by raising the rent $100 a tenant.
Wow.
So that's how apartment buildings are valued. Now, I've bought it depends on where you are. If a building's going to be 10 times the gross rents, 10, 12 times, 14 times. I bought a building in my neighborhood, not too far from me, and I thought I was maybe overpaying. It was 16 and a half times the rent. So that's kind of expensive. But I noticed what I could do with the building because everyone's rent really was well below market. And at the time, there were no rent control prohibitions on increasing people's rents. So I did some remodeling and I changed the total rental income. I doubled it. I paid 1.5 for the building. When I finished the remodeling, increased the rents, I had doubled the value of the building if I still use 16 times gross rents. It went from $1,100,000 to $2,200,000 in the course of 1 year. And I got to tell you, it doesn't matter how hard I work, I am not going to make $1 million a year.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. Now, if you had a
But I can
PhD
do
in
that
math,
with
you
the
might
real
be able to.
Yeah, but I can
If you
do
had a
it with the
PhD in
real
math. Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
So
too, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt
No,
your
no, no.
thought
So
there.
all I was going to just do is summarize and say apartment buildings value is based on rents. It's a simple formula, and you can find out what the gross rent multiplier is for a building based on buildings that are for sale in the area or reaching out to
Yeah.
brokers who work with apartment buildings.
Now, there's one thing I remember from a previous show. You have a course that teaches people from the alpha to the omega, including how to qualify tenants or
Yes.
something like. Would you share that with us, please?
Yeah, it's real simple. If they go to wealthonanyincome.com and they go to the pull down menu and look at products, they'll see it says UCLA class or UCLA apartment class. And it's a $127 video program that comes with all the forms from a sample lease to how to verify a potential tenant's income to how to run credit reports and how to advertise for new tenant. Yeah, it's complete from A to Z.
For $127. Now, folks, you think about that. You think about, I reflect back, and this is what got Rennie and I to talking about this. I went to a real estate seminar, and I didn't know. It just said free information. So I figured I'd go in there and get free information. But really what it was one of those deals where it was free to come, but they wanted you to pay to get out of there. They made you feel like you were super dumb, borderline stupid if you did not buy their program. And it didn't include anything like what Rennie's talking about for $127. And that $127, where does that money go to, Rennie?
Well, if a business owner buys it, well, it doesn't matter where it comes from, it goes to charity.
Right.
If a business owner buys it, it's tax deductible as a business expense. And if an individual buys it, I can show them how, if they make a donation to the charity, they will get it. And therefore it's deductible for them as a charitable donation.
Wow. That's a win-win-win situation there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Because all that information in that packet or that program, you're talking years and years and years of sweat equity by someone that's got skin in the game. Rennie didn't attend a webinar or a seminar and then come up with his own program or write his own book. You know, he's got sweat equity into the game. He started from ground zero.
Yeah, I started this process when I was age 50 and had nothing and just started. Yeah, from broke at age 50.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so that's how to evaluate the building. The other thing I want to talk about are the various formulas that people can use.
Okay.
And one of them that I've mentioned a few times was the gross rent multiplier, which is GRM.
Gross rent multiplier. Okay.
Yeah. You know, you multiply the rents. This should be the value of the building if you know what the multiplication factor should be. Again, buildings in the same area will have similar gross rent multiplier numbers. You can find out from a broker what it is. It's not complicated at all.
Yeah. Because brokers can tell you what the rent is, right? What the tenants are paying.
If a building is for sale, then it's going to give you what the expenses are, what the rents are, what the utility expenses, property taxes, all that kind of stuff is provided to potential buyers when a building is being listed for sale.
Yeah.
So
So there's nothing that's really gray area there. You can sit down and do the simple math
Yep.
and determine whether or not that's a, good fit for you or not.
Exactly.
And
And one of the things that's important, I mentioned this building that had a 16 and a half gross rent multiplier.
Mhm.
And when I first saw the building listed,
Mhm.
I said, oh, this doesn't pencil out. This doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
And it so happens a realtor that I was working with said, Rennie, you should go see this building, because I needed to do a tax deferred exchange, which we talked about last time. I'd sold a
Mhm.
building in LA. I had a lot of money in capital gains that I've had to pay taxes on. And he said, take a look at this building to transfer into.
Mhm.
I said, oh, I looked at that, when it was listed on LoopNet, it doesn't look like it pencils out. I said, no, come take a look at it. So I did. I went and took a look at it. And oh my gosh, I realized this broker who listed it had no clue as to what he was doing to effectively and appropriately market this building.
Mhm.
I walked in and I'm looking at an 1,100 square foot apartment with an upstairs loft and like 18-foot, 20-foot ceilings. And he's calling this a studio apartment that was being rented for $700 a month.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, with a few dollars, I can call this a 1-bedroom and get $1,400 for it.
Mhm.
So that's the building I bought, and I did the remodel. The point is, the broker provides you all this information, but sometimes you actually need to go and see the property to know if it's really worthwhile. It could be the other way around, where the picture looks so rosy, you think, oh my gosh, this is a steal, and you go see it, and it's a dump. It's got cars parked on dirt because it has no lawn. It has broken up asphalt. The shingles are falling off the building. Who knows? So the point is, whatever the property is, if you're serious, you have to go out and take a look at it.
Mhm. Understand.
Okay.
I'm looking at a property right now, and I'm seeing this 16 unit that we're going to be talking about. It says it's got a 5.63% cap rate, CAP rate. I'm not familiar with that term. What does that mean?
Okay. So what they're talking about is the capitalization rate, saying if you buy this building, as an example, for all cash, you should be getting a 5.16% return on your money after your expenses. So capitalization rate means, okay, if I put my money in the bank's going to pay me 1 or 2%. If I put my money in this building, I should be getting 5.16%.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad you asked that, because that's one of the formulas I wanted to talk about was cap rate.
Every now and then I goof up, folks.
You did beautiful, Jim. So these are the important formulas to understand. Now, other things, utilities. What percentage of the building is going out in utilities? Can the utility costs be transferred to the tenants? One of the other things has to do with overall expenses, because things do break down. Washer heaters. I don't think they're
Washer,
such a
dryers,
thing.
and well, you
washer
got
and dryers, or the heater,
Mhm.
or the dishwashing machine. These things break down. They have to be replaced. Air conditioning, heating. So the roof eventually needs to be replaced.
Yeah.
And you want to factor in the expenses that can happen down the road for the building, or the ongoing expenses you'll pay. As an example, if the expenses from the setup sheet that the broker provides, say it's 25%, saying, That seems a little on the low side. The average expenses you'll find for most buildings is in the 30 to 40% range. 25% seems like, why is this so low? So certain formulas and having these, what I call thumbnail numbers, allow you to ask more questions about what's going on. As an example, maybe they're not paying for a trash service, but the owner is hauling the trash away and burning it somewhere. Or maybe he has such a level of deferred maintenance that you're going to walk in and have to spend a lot of money to rehab the building. So there are things to look at like that. And when you've got the experience, you know to ask these things. When you don't have the experience, you want to do it with someone who does have the experience.
And you cover a lot of that in your $127 UCLA program. It's available on your website there, wealthonanyincome.com. And that's a win-win situation because not only will you get the most accurate advice out there for a small amount of money, but you're also going to be able to contribute to the Shelter a Soldier organization and can also know that you are participating on saving 2 lives, the dog and the soldier.
Yeah.
That's worth $127 donation right there, ladies and gentlemen. It really is.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I don't want to have this show turn into a pitch for my course. So let's talk about something else.
Okay.
Now I'm going to have you participate with me, and anyone else who's listening and they're not driving a car, they can participate in this.
Okay, I got my pen and paper.
Perfect. Okay. I want you to draw 2 circles large enough that you can write something in them.
Okay. All right.
All right. Okay. So in the first circle, put the word details.
Details.
Write the word details in the circle.
Got it.
And in the second circle, write the word a big picture.
Okay. Got it.
Now, when it comes to evaluating a piece of real estate, you could either look at the details or you could look at the big picture. I'll give you an example. And we'll use a single family house as an example, not an apartment building. Let's say you want to buy a house. Maybe it's going to be your first rental. Maybe you don't even own a home yet, and this is where you're going to live. And you're walking up to take a look at this house, and you notice the weeds are overgrown, or the grass is completely dead and it's just dirt. And the stairs are creaking, the wooden steps are creaking on your way in. You notice there's peeling paint on the outside. You walk inside, peeling paint on the walls. The carpet is frayed. You walk in the kitchen, you see the faucets dripping. You walk in the bathtub and you see the shower is dripping. And you're thinking, this house is such a mess. You know, these are the details.
Right.
But what's the big picture? The big picture is that this house is in a fabulous neighborhood. And Jim, do you know what the 3 rules of real estate are? One of them is location.
Right. Okay.
You know what the other 2 are?
I would say schools.
Nope. Location.
Nope. Location.
Yeah. You know what the third one is?
No.
Location.
Location.
The 3 rules of real estate: location, location, location. So if there's schools nearby, if there's shopping nearby, if there's other homes nearby, if there's a toxic waste dump nearby, it all boils down to location.
Location.
Okay. So those are the 3 rules. So this house you're looking at with the leaking plumbing and the frayed carpet and the paint peeling on the walls is in a fabulous location. And on the basis of the condition of the home, it's priced correctly. That's the big picture. And if you're going to create wealth in real estate, the first thing you look at is the big picture. And the second thing you look at are the details. So Let's give you another example on that, how important it is.
Okay.
Jim, let's say you're going to cross the street and you're going to focus on the details. You're going to
Okay.
focus on how high the curb is so you don't stumble when you start to cross the street.
All right.
And you focus on each step in front of you so that you don't step in any dog mess. You don't step in an open sewer.
Pothole.
If you focus on these details from the time you get off the curb till you get to the other side, if you focus on these details, is that a safe way to cross the street?
No, because you're not looking to see if anything is coming. It's important, like a truck or car.
Exactly. Because if you focused on the time on these details and a truck hits you, those details are irrelevant.
That's right.
The big picture is what your mommy or daddy taught you, which is look both ways before you cross the street.
That's right.
Then you can focus on some of the details.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with real estate. You look at the big picture first, the details second.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So, I remember you told me you were born on a ranch or a farm and
Farm.
farm. It was North Carolina or
Right.
okay.
Uh-huh.
And so this is just down to earth, down home wisdom.
Yeah. Makes sense.
There's nothing complicated here. So we covered looking at the big picture. We covered how you evaluate the building, the gross rent multiplier. There are other things you could learn about, like internal rate of return, which is IRR. Excuse me, I'm going to cough.
I understand. Yeah, because it's going to be. Go ahead, sir.
There's just a lot of formulas. Many of them are irrelevant. Another one is called per door. As an example, they'll say this building is selling for $100,000 per door or $35,000 per door. So 10-unit building at $35,000 per door is $350,000. Okay. And depending on where you are in the country, you can buy an apartment building for $35,000 or $40,000 a door. If you're in Los Angeles, you're likely going to see prices that are $275,000 to $350,000 per door. It's just another way of talking about the value of a building. The difficulty with that kind of evaluation is does that 10-unit building have all studio apartments, all one bedroom, all two bedrooms, a mix of studios, one bedrooms and two bedrooms? So again, it's the experience in knowing, well, what does that per door cost? How does that relate to what other buildings have sold for in that neighborhood, in that city, in that condition, of that age, and so on and so forth.
It makes perfect sense because per door means nothing, because if you don't know what's on the other side of the door, that's it could be one bedroom, two bedroom, or a studio apartment, and that'd be a big factor there. Really would be. That's amazing. And I'm really looking forward next week when we actually I'm going to get a couple of properties, and if time permitting, we'll just go through and evaluate the property so we can apply the principles and things that Rennie is teaching us here to kind of like hands-on, if I could put it like that.
Yep. We're going to take, we'll take a building or two that you found, and we're going to go through it item by item. Now, in future episodes of the show, we're going to be talking about the importance of a lease with the tenant, how to find the tenants, how to market the property. As an example, one of the things that I talk about in a lease that's really important from the owner's standpoint is it really protects the owner. The tenant has rights, but the owner needs to have some rights. And unfortunately, I'm in California, and in California, the owners really don't have much rights. It's a very anti-landlord state and a very pro-tenant state. Now, there's nothing wrong with being pro-tenants, as long as you're not also anti-landlord.
Yeah, it's got to be a balance.
Exactly. It's a balance
Yeah.
where if each person is meeting their obligations, they
Mhm.
should both be treated fairly. It's
Mhm.
just that simple.
Talking about tenants, that reminds me back when 2021 happened with the pandemic and all that stuff. You were proactive in working with your tenants.
Yes.
And I'm just going to let you share what you did there with the tenants. Now, this is a time when everybody's on lockdown. Yeah, everything came to a screeching halt.
Yep.
Everybody was worried about if they had enough toilet paper. And I don't know who that Einstein was that come up with that, because if it's me, I'd be worried about beanie weenies and crackers and things like that. But you were proactive with your tenants, and I'm just going to let you share how the tenants fared during that time.
Yeah. Well, here, I'll start with the philosophy. And the
Hmm.
philosophy that I have that some other apartment building owners don't have is that
Hmm.
my tenants are wonderful people, number one. And number two, it's their rent payments that are buying this building for me. In essence,
Hmm.
my tenants are buying real estate for me.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to treat them well.
Hmm.
I'm going to take care of them. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, Jim, how would you feel if someone said to you, Jim, see this house over here? I'm going to buy it for you.
Hmm.
How wouldn't you love that person?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Wouldn't you do whatever you could for that person?
Oh, yeah.
So that is how I treat my tenants.
Hmm.
When something goes wrong, it's taken care of. If something breaks down, it gets fixed. If something won't work, it gets replaced.
Hmm.
And that's how I've always treated my tenants. So when the pandemic hit and people were told in California, tenant, you don't have to pay your rent. Don't worry about it. We don't care if the landlords are hung out to dry. Don't bother paying your rent. Well, eventually the state did make up for the tenants who couldn't pay their rent, and they created a program where the owners of the property could be reimbursed for the rent that they didn't collect. But the point is, because of how I treated my tenants, other than one person who had to apply for that aid from the state, which I
Hmm.
did receive, and her rent was paid in full,
Hmm.
all my other tenants, all of them, without exception, paid 100% of their rent through 100% of the pandemic.
Wow.
They found ways to come up with all their rent money, whether they drove for DoorDash or whether they moonlighted for something or they worked remotely instead of going into an office or
Hmm.
whatever it was. Because of how I took care of them, they took care of me.
Wow. That's amazing. That's really, those are kind of stories that need to be told out there, because what Rennie did in establishing a strong relationship with his tenants, he allowed them to have the pride and dignity that they were going to not allow a situation to rob them of their dignity. Because if you can't pay your rent, you're not going to be happy about that. You're not going to call up your mother and say, "Hey, Mom, guess what? I couldn't pay my rent this month, but I'm okay. I live in the state of California." They say, "No problemo." No, because when you rob people of their dignity, you've done them a huge disservice. That's why it's so important. We talk a lot on this show about loving yourself first, and you can love others. Have pride and dignity. Pride in doing a good job is a good pride. Having personal dignity and respect for yourself, that's something that no one can take from you, but you can give it away for free. And that's what makes you feel worthless on the inside. And that's an amazing story, because we heard all these things, how people were, going through hard times during the pandemic, and everybody, I mean, true story. I wish I was making this up. I think it was I-35 or I-45 in Texas. I-45 goes from Houston to Dallas. I-35, it was on I-45. I-35 goes from Austin up to Fort Worth. But on I-45, it made news. There was a tractor trailer that caught on fire, and guess what its cargo was? It was full of toilet paper. And
Oh,
that was big time news. I mean, oh geez. Oh, it was. I wish I was making it up. That actually, when I first heard about it, I thought it was a joke. I mean, how does a truck full of toilet paper catch on fire in a I don't know. Anyway, meanwhile,
I can
back at
tell
the
you how,
ranch.
because something like that almost happened to my truck. I've got a 1945 Dodge pickup truck. I took it out of storage
Oh,
a couple months ago. It'd been sitting for 3 years. I've
mm,
had this truck for 56 years. Okay.
wow.
Anyway, so
It's
I've
like an
decided,
old dog, an old friend.
oh gosh, this thing's been through so much with me. Teaching school in Nebraska and driving it to school and you name it. I taught my daughter to drive a stick shift on this truck. So it's got piles of memories.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I was thinking of selling it after I spent $7,500 in repairs,
Mhm.
and it drove so nice I decided to keep it.
There you go.
But
It's like,
one of the repairs didn't quite take, and I pressed on the brakes real hard, and one of the rear wheels, the drum brake wouldn't release. But I couldn't just stay in the middle of the street. So I'm only about 10 minutes away from one of our buildings where I could store it.
mhm, mhm.
But by the time I got there, that rear wheel is smoking.
Oh, yeah. I
So
bet
the
so.
brake pad wouldn't release. It got really hot. It's smoking. And I realized that poor truck with the toilet paper could
Mhm.
have had a bad wheel, bad brake,
Yep.
got real hot. Driver's
Real
way
bad.
up in the cab. He doesn't know.
Mhm.
Little fire starts in the back. And I think toilet paper is flammable as
Oh,
paper,
yeah.
right? So,
It's
I mean, I'm sure
it
that thing moved fast.
oh, it just went up and, because it's all kindling. I mean, it's just, nothing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's smaller than kindling. It's just
Yeah, it
paper.
is. Yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah, I tell you, yeah, it's amazing because yeah, that made the news, and at first I thought it was a joke,
Yeah. Yeah. I wish
and
I'd have heard about that out here because, yeah, that would have been something to let all the neighbors know about. Guess what happened in Texas
yeah,
with the toilet paper?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's and it had a picture of it, and it showed it smoking on the side of the road and all that, and I'm going like, good grief! I thought it was just some kind of a joke, but it was. They reported that was full of toilet paper. So okay, well, it was full of toilet paper. Now it's full of hot air and smoke.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's we got about another 10 minutes left, so let's go ahead and continue on here. And
Oh, you got it. So let me take a look at one of the other things I wanted to talk about, and
Mhm.
that is the three areas most people operate from. And this is really
Oh,
kind of
okay.
important because this ties into the big picture and the details and how we as
Mhm.
human beings operate.
Okay,
Okay, so the three now, okay, I'm going to have you get back to your pad and paper.
I'm here.
Okay, and I want you to draw a small little box,
Okay,
and we're going to label that box thoughts.
thoughts.
THOUGHT.
Got it.
All right, let me ask you this. If I asked you, Jim, are thoughts powerful? What would you tell me?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so I'm going to show you why they're not.
Okay,
Okay, so let's draw another box that's a little bit larger,
okay.
and we're
Got
going to
it.
label that box feelings.
Mm.
So now I'm going to give you an example. Let's say I had this thought
Mhm.
that I needed to lose some weight and it would be a good idea to start jogging. Okay.
Mhm.
So that's the thought. And I'm even going to take action on this thought, and I'm going to set my alarm clock for 5:30 in the morning tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'm going to get up and I'm going to go jogging. Okay?
Mhm.
So tomorrow comes, the alarm clock goes off. It's 5:30 in the morning. Now, I'm not sure what it looks like in Texas at 5:30 in the morning.
Dark.
It's dark. Okay. Is it cold?
Not right now, no.
Oh, okay.
Up
Well,
and down.
fine. California's going to be cold. It will be dark.
Mhm.
And the feeling comes up like, it's warm in this bed. I don't think I want to get up today. I'll
Yep.
do it tomorrow.
Mhm.
Okay. So what happens is we might have a really good thought, but
Mhm.
our feelings are 95% more powerful than our thoughts.
It's
You
true.
may doubt what you can do. Other issues can come up. The emotions show up, whatever it is I'm getting at. The feelings will overcome and overpower the thoughts that you had, which might have been a
Mhm.
really good idea, like going and looking for some property to buy.
Right.
So you say, wait a second. If feelings aren't powerful, if thoughts aren't powerful and feelings are more powerful, what do I do to overcome these feelings that may be blocking me from the goals I want to achieve, from
Mhm.
looking at the big picture of the details? That's the third box. Now you draw a nice big box, bigger than the
Mhm.
other two,
Okay.
and we're going to call that principles or values.
Okay, got it.
So what we do with this is, and I have an exercise in my book where people can identify their values.
Mm.
And what I'm getting at is, let's say one of my values, well, it is, but let's say one of my values is integrity.
Mhm.
If I give someone my word, like, Jim, I'm going to show up on the show, I'm going to show up.
Mhm.
I
Right.
blew it one week, but that had nothing to do with integrity.
Mm-mm.
So getting back to my example about, it was a good idea to go jogging. I set off the alarm. It went off. I'm not getting up. But let's say I know a neighbor who goes jogging every morning.
Mhm.
Well, let's say I go over his house and I say, hey, Ron, I know you go jogging in the mornings.
Mhm.
I'd like to go jogging with you. Can I do that? And Ron says, sure. Meet me in front of my house, 6:00 tomorrow morning. We'll go jogging together. I said, okay, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Now, I don't have to use the words, okay, Ron, I promise, I give you my word, I will be here tomorrow morning. It's a promise
Right.
I'm making. I don't have to go through. All I said is, I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Right.
The next morning, when that alarm goes off at 5:30 and I don't feel like it, but I gave Ron my word I'd be there, what do you think I'm
Yes.
going to do?
You're going to get it up and get it in gear and be there.
Exactly. And that's how you achieve goals. This is why I say wealth creation is a team sport, not a solo sport. When you're accountable only to yourself, you can flake out really easily.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that the truth?
When you set yourself up to be accountable to someone else,
Mhm.
and you have the value integrity because you've identified it, you're going to be
Yes.
there.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
I got to tell you a funny story.
Okay.
I'm giving this example to someone who wanted some business coaching.
Okay.
And I'm going through it like I did with you. And I said, if you didn't feel like getting up, what would you do? And she said, well, I'd tell him I'm not coming. Okay. Let me try this example again. Make believe you have the value integrity and you gave someone your word that you would show up,
Mhm.
but now you don't feel like it. What would you
Mhm.
do? Well, like I said, I would tell them I'm not coming. And I'm thinking to
Wow.
myself, this person can't even imagine what it would be like to honor what they said.
Yeah, that's a major disconnect there.
Yeah.
That's a
And so
major
anyway,
disconnect.
obviously this is not someone I would let hire me to do coaching.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just, that example stands out in my mind so strongly that
Mhm.
someone couldn't even imagine what it would be like to have integrity.
Oh, yeah.
Not
It
even in,
reminds
not even within their imagination.
Yeah. It reminds me growing up, my dad always taught me, he said, when you tell somebody you're going to do something, do it. And if something comes up that you cannot do it, never give them an excuse. Give them a bona fide reason why you could not, keep your word or do what you promised to do. They'll
Yeah.
understand that. But if you give them an excuse, like I didn't feel like it or overslept, I mean, overslept is a poor excuse because all that means is that you did not have enough respect for yourself to get yourself in bed earlier the night before to give your body the proper rest it needed so you could get up and keep your word. That's it in
Or
a nutshell.
just set the alarm clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
not complicated.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Reminds me of a movie I saw with, it was James Bond, and he's got this bed. It's, certain time it starts moving like it's on a conveying line or something like that. And this one thing takes off the blanket, another thing takes off the pillow, and it gets to the bathtub. It's a big bathtub because we're talking James Bond. We're just talking about nothing, standard. Everything's got to be, spectacular. And the bed lifts him up and dumps him into the bath. I'm thinking, man, that's about 3/3 lazy, but just struck my mind as being funny. I just had to share that. But it's some of the people out there may, and I never have been a big James Bond fan, but I remember seeing it. I'm going like, wow. I mean, who would even come up with that idea? But
that to me, that sounds like a cartoon, and I
Yeah.
would love to see that on the big screen or even the
Yeah.
TV screen. I think that
Oh,
would be
yeah.
hysterical.
It was. I don't remember. I think it was Sean Connery way back then. I think he was the actual person who played James Bond. I forget how many James Bond people. I mean, there's been Pierce Brosnan. There's been
Yeah.
uh,
Sean Connery,
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan,
Dalton.
Craig,
Roger
Daniel
Moore was the
Craig.
first one.
Yeah, Daniel Craig.
Yeah. And Rennie Gabriel, he was James Bond for a while there. Ta-da. 007. Here I am.
Yeah, it's funny.
But-
The place where I buy my air conditioners for the building,
Mhm.
there they give me, how they identify me, and it's GAB 007.
Really?
I am 007 at the air conditioning place.
I told you he was 007. I didn't even know that. A little birdie came in here and told me. How about that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
So,
funny how
anyway.
things like that work out. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
We could preview, future episodes. We'll talk about how you could do your own repairs. We're going to talk about, like I said, the lease, screening tenants, advertising for tenants, doing credit report. Future episodes, we're going to cover all those kinds of things. And now I think you accidentally hit the mute button because unlike a politician, where your lips were moving, but you could have been telling the truth.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay, now I hear you.
Somehow or another, I did hit the mute button there. But anyway, on the next episode, we're going to be talking about, we're going to, pull up a property or two, and I'll send it to Rennie so he can do his research on it. And we will actually walk through a property, going over, how to evaluate it, what to look for, Yeah, we'll just start from the alpha and go to the omega, and hopefully we can do two. If not, we'll just do the one. But it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, you're going to have fun on this because I got a pile of questions for you.
Well, folks, you can trust me to give all of the wrong answers, so you won't have to.
You did pretty good. I mean, you said thoughts were powerful, and I said they're not.
Yep.
But that was a trick question.
I know it. And you got me on the location. What's the next one? Schools, that's location. That's amazing. And really gave a great example of how when you're going to be crossing the street, you don't get caught up in the details. So if you're looking at property, you don't want to get caught up into the maintenance, what you see it's got to be done. Because maintenance is something that's normal. It's going to happen. The walls are going to have to be repainted. The carpet's going to be replaced. Washers and dryers have to be replaced. I mean, that's just life. But the big picture, of course, is location and the price right and that sort of thing. And it's really amazing. We learned about cap rate too, 5.63% on this one property here. And that means that it's kind of like if you take that same amount of money and put it in the bank, your bank will pay you a very small amount. But in this case here, you should be earning about 5.63% annual percentage rate on your investment. That's huge.
Correct.
So now we know what cap rate means. So we learned a few things today. And we learned that I didn't know thoughts was not powerful. You know, how about that? It's like one time I was talking to Bill, and I was telling Bill Heinrich, the author of The 7 Levels of Truth. And I said, Bill, I was thinking the other day, he says, Jim, thinking's not good for you. And we were on a live broadcast when he said that. So I said, okay. And I said, folks, Bill knows me real well. That's why he said that. But Bill was talking about don't get caught up in the physical things. Look at a much higher source through love and energy. Because if you set like I told him, I made a decision, don't make a decision, make options. Because in the decision making, you build a mental box and everything's got to fit inside that box, and it puts binders on you. Therefore, if you make options in life, okay, this is not going well. This is like pushing a chain uphill. It gives you an open door because your calling could be going through another direction rather than focusing on, that little box. Ladies and gentlemen, our time is gone. Rennie and I, we always have a lot of fun together. We go back a ways, and it's always my pleasure to have him here on the show. And, sharing the knowledge that we do because, investing in real estate and, that's part of business, but understanding the principles of business is huge. It really, truly is. And I just want to close the show by saying, be sure and love yourself first. It's your birthright to love yourself first, and then you can love others. You may love them enough to let them go. But be sure and love yourself. Be sure and give yourself grace. Forgive yourself when you make mistakes, because we all do. And most importantly, share, love and blessings with others. And we'll be back next Monday, and we're going to be evaluating property on behalf of Rennie, Gabriel, and myself. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week, and be sure and visit wealthonanyincome.com. We'll catch you next time.